Hi everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome back to MS Neuro TV, brought to you by MS Views and News. I'm Ana Fernandez de Castro, and I am the Assistant Development Coordinator at MS Views and News. And I'm also here today with our Director of Development, Jennifer Falk.
Good evening, everybody.
All right.
Welcome.
So we're so excited to be back with you in 2019 to bring you more great topics. And we're really happy to see that a lot of you who are joining us here tonight have seen our webinars before. So thanks for being back with us again. And several of you are joining us for the first time, so we'd love to welcome you, and we really hope that you enjoyed this series. You guys are really helpful in making this program what it is and helping all this come together, so we really thank you for that. MS Views and News is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing education and information to the multiple sclerosis community. This program tonight has been made possible with support from Celgene, so we really appreciate their support for this. Okay, so today our special guest is Dr. Ben Thrower, and we'll be discussing the latest research findings and breakthroughs in the world of multiple sclerosis. Dr. Ben Thrower is a neurologist and the medical director of the Andrew C. Carlos MS Institute at Shepherd Center in Atlanta, Georgia. He attended undergraduate college at Florida State University and medical school at the University of Florida. His neurology training was at the University of Texas Health Sciences Center in San Antonio. Dr. Thrower is the senior medical advisor for MS Focus and co-authored Navigating Life with MS for the American Academy of Neurology. He has been the principal investigator on over 70 clinical studies in MS. That's amazing, by the way. He and his pediatrician wife, Karen, serve on the board of Comunidad Connect and provide medical care to underserved areas in rural Nicaragua. They are part-time Pirates and avid Harley Davidson fans.
Thank you.
All right. I love that. All right, so we'll start tonight by playing a quick video interview with Dr. Thrower to get us warmed up for our Q&A and discussion. And after the video, Dr. Thrower will be available for a live Q&A with us, where you can send us your questions through the text box. Don't worry, we will keep your questions anonymous. We do know that your privacy is important, so we will keep them anonymous. And for those of you who are calling in over the phone tonight and do not have video access, please know that you're going to be hearing a few minutes of silence while we play the pre-recorded video interview. But don't worry, please stay on the phone line, because once the video is done playing, you'll be able to hear us again during the live Q&A with Dr. Thrower. All right, let's begin.
Welcome to MS Neuro TV, presented by MS Views and News. MS Neuro TV is a comprehensive educational program bringing together MS professionals from across the United States, covering the topics that you want to learn more about. To register for MS Neuro TV webinars, visit www.msviewsandnews.org. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the program.
Good evening, Dr. Thrower, and thank you for again joining us. I'm sure the patients that are going to watch this are going to be quite delighted to hear you again, and we want to say thank you in advance.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. This is about the research update, staying current on today's possibilities. Could you please update us on the current MS research trends for the treatment of multiple sclerosis?
So we're seeing research in a number of different areas. We're seeing improvements on existing medications, maybe making them safer or more convenient. We're also seeing a bigger focus on rehabilitation in multiple sclerosis. One of the things that we're very excited about is something called Picori, Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Initiative in multiple sclerosis. This is an area where people with MS are actually getting to drive where research is headed in multiple sclerosis. And some of that is focusing on disease management. Some of it is, there's a big focus on exercise as well.
To many patients' concerns, they want to know what the physicians, what the doctors feel about research, and do you feel research can find a cure for multiple sclerosis or to find the best treatment with all these clinical trials?
Obviously, a cure is what we all want, and I think cure may mean different things to different people with MS. For someone who's newly diagnosed, maybe a cure means stopping it dead in its tracks right now. For someone who has mobility issues and is in a power wheelchair, a cure means reverse my disability, restore my ability to walk. For someone whose mom or dad has MS, maybe a cure means preventing it in the first place. I do think that we're seeing movement in all of those areas. We are seeing a lot of research on neural repair, the ability to reverse disability, and I do think that that will happen at some point.
Great, thank you for that. How does research directly impact a patient waiting for a possible new treatment?
So there's always a balance between being proactive and managing your multiple sclerosis right now, but being hopeful and keeping an eye on the horizon and watching for that next big thing. It is a balance, though. We don't want to see people delay appropriate treatment right now and accessing all of the things they have in their toolbox and only focusing on the horizon. I think, again, it has to be that balance between manage it now and watch the horizon for the future.
Great, thank you for that answer. Can you please familiarize us with the drug development process, the trial phases, and the difference of preclinical research and studies involving clinical research?
So human drug development comes in 4 phases. Before something gets to the human trial, though, we have preclinical work. This could be laboratory or animal-based studies. So we are the only animal that gets multiple sclerosis. In the animal model, we're using a rodent model called EAE. And one thing people have to be careful about is there's a lot of stuff out there in the EAE animal model that breaks in social media. And it's good to be excited about it, but it's also important to be realistic about it. Just because something works in that mouse doesn't mean it's going to work in humans. So there's still a lot of work to go after the mouse model. Phase 1 trials are typically done in individuals who may not actually have the health condition you're looking at. You're looking at dosing and safety frequently in healthy individuals. Phase 2, now we start looking at individuals with the actual health condition. You're looking again to further hone down on the safety and the dosing, starting to get a hint about the effectiveness of the drug. Phase 3 is typically where you have these large multi-site trials. This is going to be the trial data that's presented to the FDA for FDA approval. Once the drug is FDA approved, we may have phase 4 studies. Phase 4 is maybe looking at the drug now in a different patient population. Maybe you're jumping from relapsing remitting to secondary progressive, or just sort of tweaking the drug, getting more data on it. But phase 4, again, is after the drug is already approved.
Awesome. Again, thank you for being with us today, and I want to thank you for coming down and seeing us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome back. That was great. Now I see a lot of you are already typing in your questions for Dr. Thrower. If you haven't started typing in your questions yet, we would love to hear from you. We are here to receive your questions. We will try to answer them in the order they are received. You should see a question box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you don't see a place to type your questions, you should look for a little red arrow, little orange box, and click on that, and it should make the question box available for you. And so before we get started with our questions, I'd just like to note that tonight is such a broad topic. I'd like to begin by mentioning that today's discussion is only covering a fraction of the many MS treatments and research currently being studied throughout the world. We are trying to provide a brief overview of technical studies and ongoing research, and we hope to give you some insight into today's updates. Dr. Thrower will be sharing with us what he feels are some exciting and remarkable high points that we can address today. So we hope to answer as many of your questions as possible. But first, I'd like to begin by welcoming Dr. Ben Thrower to MS Neuro TV. Welcome, Dr. Thrower.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you guys very much for putting this event on, and thank you to everyone who's listening in and to the sponsors for making this possible.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and being part of this project. We're very happy to have you on with us tonight. And I have a first question for you, Dr. Thrower. You mentioned neuro repair. Can you share with us more detail about studies on neuro repair and remyelination? Is remyelination possible?
So traditionally, we've thought about managing multiple sclerosis in one of three ways: either treating acute attacks, managing symptoms, or stopping progression of MS altogether. But all of us want that fourth box, and that's reversing disability or neural repair. And it is moving along. So when we think about ways that we might repair myelin and repair maybe even nerve fibers, the axons themselves in the brain and spinal cord, an area of quite a bit of interest has been mesenchymal stem cells. So these are immature cells, usually from the individual themselves. So there is also research looking at umbilical cord blood as a source for these types of cells. And the idea is that these cells have the ability to generate repair. It's not fully understood how they might generate repair. So there is some evidence that maybe they are actually secreting factors that aid in that repair, and that maybe that leads to another line of research in identifying those factors and skipping the mesenchymal stem cells themselves. So there have been trials in the past 2 years that have seen some success with mesenchymal stem cells, but I wouldn't want people to think that that's the only way that researchers are looking at repairing the damage and reversing disability. There is research with a compound called anti-LINGO. So anti-LINGO is something that might let oligodendrocytes or oligodendrocyte precursor cells become mature and generate. So we are wrapping up a large multinational trial right now, and hopefully we'll have more answers on this in the very near future. Another area that I think is very exciting is a compound called elezanumab that looks like it could potentially be an axonal regenerator. It's going into phase 2B studies. We mentioned in the video kind of the different phases of trials. So this phase 2B study would be in individuals with MS. It would, again, look at the safety of the medication, the dosing of the medication, and start looking at how effective it is. The plans are maybe to look at not only people with MS, but people with spinal cord trauma. Another area where things are really being fast-tracked in terms of neural repair is research being done at University of California, San Francisco, using a test tube model that allows us to screen for potential repair molecules very quickly. They're picking molecules that are already FDA approved for something else. And the beauty of that model is if you find something in the lab through this mechanism, well, it's already been through human testing. It's already FDA approved, so it cuts down on the timeline drastically. One of the compounds that was identified through that process was clemastine. Clemastine is the active ingredient in Tavist. It's an antihistamine. Who would have ever thought that an antihistamine could potentially generate repair in the central nervous system. So it is moving along, and hopefully we'll all see the day when people who have had relapses or progression of disability and are left with some permanent symptoms from that, whether it's cognition, visual issues, mobility issues, that potentially we're going to see opportunities to reverse that disability.
Wow, that is amazing. It sounds very promising. Thank you for sharing that with us. We have another question here, and if you can tell us, are there any new recommendations and or guidelines that healthcare providers have been starting to follow recently in MS?
Sure thing. So, ideally, we would like to someday be at the point in multiple sclerosis where maybe the oncologists or cancer specialists are with both adult and pediatric cancer, where there are really well-studied guidelines. And if you went to an MS center, say in Georgia versus one in California, you're going to get the same high level of care, quality care, because we've studied this and now it's been standardized. We're not there yet, but we're moving there. A paper that came out earlier this year, actually late last year, looked at screening for cognitive issues in multiple sclerosis. And the consensus was that there probably is one test that we could do that would be quick and easy in the clinic, something called SDMT, or single digit modality testing. So this is a way of actually, within just about 3 minutes, screening for any cognitive issues in multiple sclerosis and maybe following it. And the recommendation was that we really need to move towards doing that on a once-a-year basis. One of the other recommendations that's come out recently is just in the way we talk about and classify multiple sclerosis. We've traditionally used 4 categories of MS: relapsing remitting, primary progressive, secondary progressive, and progressive relapsing. That we've actually dropped that progressive relapsing category, and now what we're really starting to do is emphasize the fact that when we go from relapsing remitting to secondary progressive, these are not 2 separate diagnoses. They're not 2 separate boxes. It's a spectrum. There are people with secondary progressive MS who still have active inflammation and still have relapses. There are people with relapsing remitting MS who may have a little progression of disability. So we're trying to move away from those very strict boxes that have sometimes come back to really hurt people with MS, in that maybe a treatment is FDA approved for relapsing remitting MS, and someone's chart labels them as secondary progressive, and the next thing we know, an insurance carrier is saying, no, you can't have treatment X because you don't have the right label. And we don't want to see those labels turn back on people, and so I think that's certainly a move in the right direction. I'd say the last development, and it's certainly not agreed on yet, but it's something people in the MS community should be aware of, is a shift in paradigm in how we use existing MS therapies. So there are really 2 schools of thought on how we use our existing therapies. One is called escalation therapy. So that would mean if a person has MS, maybe we're going to pick one of our traditional, Avonex, Betaseron, Copaxone, Rebif type medications that have been around a long time, have great safety profile, no surprises with these drugs, but they have modest efficacy. And then what we're going to do is watch that individual, and if they have breakthrough activity, new lesions on MRI, relapses, progression, then we're going to move them up to maybe a more effective drug. The other camp is called induction therapy, and that would mean picking a more aggressive therapy from day one. So maybe using an Ocrevus, a Tysabri from day one. And I would say there's this growing sentiment that maybe we should be looking at that as a first line option. And part of the reason we think that we should be going to those more effective therapies up front is that when someone has a relapse, there's about a 30% chance that they've accumulated a new level of disability that, at least with current technology, we cannot reverse. So we like to be as aggressive as we can reasonably. That said, if someone, listeners out there, I know we have people on the line who are on one of the traditional therapies. If you're doing well, you're doing well. And, if you have no relapse, no progression of disability, no new MRI lesions, you're getting an A+ on your exam, your MS exam, and we probably can't do better than that. So we wouldn't want to give people the impression that if you're doing great, that you need to switch to one of these other therapies.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Thrower. And if you could please share with us current research in relation to brain volume loss or brain atrophy? Or explain what that is even.
So, when you look at the volume of our brain, our brains are about as healthy as we are going to humanly get when we're in our 20s. And after about age 30, all of our brains start shrinking a little bit. It's not a nice thing to think about, but that's just normal human development. In multiple sclerosis, if you damage those nerve fibers, the axons, we can accelerate that process. We can see more brain volume loss. We can also see loss of volume in the spinal cord. And there's a lot of research indicating that if you look at what really predicts disability in a person with MS, it's probably not the number of white spots that you have. It's probably the volume of your brain and your spinal cord. So those are going to be very important things for us to think about. What we've also learned in the past couple of years is that, yes, multiple sclerosis is a white matter disease, but it's not only a white matter disease. It's also a gray matter disease. And it may be that this subtle gray matter disease that we've had a harder time seeing on MRI may be just as important, if not more important, than the white matter changes that are. Research is indicating that atrophy in some of these deep gray matter structures, which we've not paid a lot of attention to in the past, may be a very good predictor of disability and maybe one of the best predictors of disability. Spinal cord volume, which we've had a hard time measuring, but we're getting better at, may be a very good predictor of how mobile someone is. We're also learning that there might be other markers not involving MRI that might predict atrophy and disability. An area that's of quite a bit of interest has been on immunoglobulin light chains that can be measured in spinal fluid. We're hoping that we will get to a point where they could be measured in blood also, and those are actually seem to correlate very well with atrophy in the brain and with disability itself.
Incredible. Okay. And can you share with us some updates on research and recent treatment options made available today, and what you see is in the pipeline for relapsing remitting MS, secondary progressive MS, and primary progressive MS?
So what we see in the pipeline we see some truly novel drugs out there on the horizon, but we also see sometimes improvements on existing medications. So we have, in terms of a brand new drug, we have a drug called Cladribine, hopefully right around the corner. This would be an oral medication, and it would be FDA approved for relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. So we would have another option for relapsing remitting MS. We are looking very soon at I wouldn't say the first, but it's the first one that we would use widely, first FDA approved drug for secondary progressive MS. And this would be a drug called siponimod, which is very similar to fingolimod or Gilenya that we have right now. The hope with siponimod is that we would improve the effectiveness and improve the safety of the drug, and it is being specifically tested in secondary progressive MS. The reason I hedge a little bit on saying that it's the first drug for secondary progressive MS is that there technically is a drug right now. We just don't use it very often, and that's mitoxantrone or novantrone, which is a drug that came out a number of years ago. It's a chemotherapy drug that's been around a while, and the reason you don't hear much about it is not because it's not effective, but because it has some safety issues that really make it somewhat unappealing, can have cardiac issues associated with it, and can be associated with a very aggressive form of leukemia. So you just don't see that drug used very much. Right now, we do have our relatively new ocrelizumab or Ocrevus, which was our first drug FDA approved for primary progressive MS. You're seeing some sort of second line versions of that medication. Ofatumumab is a drug that would be given as a subcutaneous injection once a month versus the every 6-month IV infusion with our existing Ocrevus. So there is quite a bit on the horizon out there. Again, some brand new things, and then some things that are just going to be maybe make improvements on our existing medications.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm going to ask a question that is coming in over and over again, but in different formats. I'll try to summarize. But are there current studies looking at new therapies specific for MS symptoms and new therapies to treat relapse? So looking at therapies that are not disease-modifying therapies, but just new therapies for relapse and symptom management.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question because, while we see all these great developments in disease modifying therapies, we really, in terms of improving quality of life right now for people with MS, it's managing their symptoms that they deal with on a daily basis. And so when we think about improving quality of life and managing symptoms, there are some new medications that we're looking at. There is an extended release form of amantadine, interestingly. Amantadine is a very old anti-influenza drug that we think of as a fatigue management option for people with MS. But by changing the way the drug is absorbed and changing the pharmacodynamic properties of the drug, it looks like we may be able to actually improve walking in some people with MS. So we were part of a pilot study about 3 years ago that looked at a small group of people with MS treated with extended release amantadine, and there was a statistical improvement in their walking. So now there's a much larger multi-center trial going on. We don't have the final answer to that yet, but it is something that's ongoing. An area that I think probably doesn't get enough attention, and we mentioned it in the video earlier, is the whole area of rehabilitation and exercise for people with MS. I think we really estimate how much symptom improvement we can get rehabilitation and exercise. A number of centers, ours included, have done sort of multidisciplinary wellness programs for people with MS, and most of these studies have consistently shown that people have better energy levels, better mobility, better endurance, better moods, and just overall a better quality of life without using any medications, just going aggressively after rehabilitation. A lot of research now is focusing on really bringing the best exercise options to people with more advanced MS. What is the best way for a person in a power wheelchair or a scooter to exercise? We're doing research along with a number of other centers on something called FES bike, or functional electrical stimulation bicycle. This is a way of trying to improve endurance and lower extremity strength, walking if the person is walking, and through the use of this functional electrical stimulation bicycle model. We mentioned also this large study or group either called Picori, or Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Initiative. This is not unique to MS. This is across multiple health states. This is letting people with whatever health condition you're looking at help drive the research. And what we've heard through the MS community is not only do they want to see advancements in disease-modifying therapies, they want to see advancements in symptom management. I wish I had something great to say on the relapse management front. We really haven't seen any brand new drugs for relapse management. We're still using our kind of traditional steroid therapies, ACTH, IV immune globulin, or plasma exchange for more severe relapses. So not as much on that research front.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's a lot of information. It's great information. We do have multiple questions about this next topic also. So recently, there was a piece in the news covering the experimental use of hematopoietic transplantation, or HSCT. And I hope I said that right.
You got it perfectly.
Oh, good. Okay. It sounds poetic, right?
Yes.
In the treatment of MS. So can you share with us what this is and your thoughts on this type of stem cell transplant?
Yeah, so it's important to distinguish HSCT, hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, from mesenchymal stem cells. So hematopoietic stem cell transplantation is really a form of a bone marrow transplant. So the idea with this is that if MS is an autoimmune condition, it is your immune system acting up and picking on the brain and spinal cord. What if we could just give you a new immune system? Let's reboot your immune system. And the way that this is done is that immature stem cells are taken from the bone marrow of the individual with MS themselves. Then those cells are set aside, frozen, and then the person has something called immune ablation. So they have some form of chemotherapy given to wipe out their existing immune system. So you're going to shut down all of those bad cells, and now you're going to give the person their own immature stem cells back and let them reboot the computer, if you will. So they're rebooting an immune system that does not have the knowledge to pick on the brain and spinal cord. So this has come, I would say, light years over the past couple of decades. So what we know now is that it is a very effective procedure. This most recent paper compared it to some existing disease-modifying therapies, and it does appear to be more effective than our traditional, interferon and glutamate therapies. There were a small number of people on natalizumab or Tysabri in the study, and it did look more effective than Tysabri in this small study, but with the caveat being that there were not many people on Tysabri. The study was ongoing while Ocrevus or ocrelizumab was getting approval, so they did not have any individuals on that particular medication. So we know it's effective. We know the safety has gotten a lot better. Prior studies had shown a death rate of up to 3 to 5% in people with HSCT, mainly due to infections, because there is a period of time where you have no immune system. That's gotten much better. Most recent trials have had no deaths with the procedure. We know that picking the right person for this procedure is hugely important. And what studies would seem to suggest is that the right person has very active relapsing remitting MS and is probably under the age of 50. We have not been as impressed with what we see in people over the age of 50 or in people with progressive forms of MS. Where it's sort of interesting is there's a lot more interest in this procedure in the MS community, understandably so, than there are places to get it done. So, some of the leading sites in the country would be places like Northwestern in Chicago, and they're using fairly strict criteria to try to select the individuals who would have the best chance to respond to this. You have people who can't get into these research programs who are going to Mexico, to Russia, other places to have the procedure done. And people just really need to do their homework before they go there. A lot of these places outside of the US will transplant just about anybody if you have the funds to do it. It is a cost, an expense out of pocket, usually in the $50,000 to $70,000 range. And probably the most concerning thing to me is when you have this procedure done outside of the United States, there's not very good follow-up. So you have the procedure done, you come home, and then if something goes wrong, if you have a complication, it's not like you're going to be able to hop back on a plane to Russia or to Mexico quickly and easily. So it's just, I'm a big believer in self-autonomy when we decide what's right for us in healthcare, but I think people should make their decisions based upon all of the information being in front of them.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Thrower. We want to say thank you for joining us tonight and for sharing your expertise and your perspectives on all of these topics. We are very grateful to have you with us here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And for everyone that's on tonight, please know we've covered a lot of great information, and this event tonight will be sent out as a video recording. It is being recorded, so you can have a copy of this, and you'll get that through email, or you can watch that on our YouTube Learning channel. And now I'd like to turn it over to Anna Christina, who has some closing comments to share with you.
Great, thanks a lot, Jennifer, and thank you so much, Dr. Thrower. You gave us a lot of great information. We even had one patient that did mention that she did go to see you, and she was very happy to be your patient. So thank you on her part.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. And we did get a lot of questions tonight, so thank you so much to everybody who sent sent stuff in. We're so sorry that we weren't able to get to everyone, but we did our best, and Dr. Thrower gave out a lot of great information, so thanks again. And thank you for everybody for joining us and back on MS Neuro TV in 2019. We're so glad to see that so many of you have joined us back again. And we really appreciate if you could please complete the brief survey that's going to appear once the webinar is finished. We do like to see, what you think and any suggestions, any comments. What did you like? What did you not like? Because we want to continue customizing these events around you. So next month's topic is going to be about young adults living with MS with Dr. Brian Steingo. And we'll be having a discussion on the emotional, social, and physical aspects of being a young adult living with MS. This next webinar will be on Tuesday, February 5th at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those of you who are joining us live are already registered for the entire series, so just keep a lookout for the reminder emails and instructions on how to join the next webinar. And if you're watching us through YouTube and are not registered for this series, please know that you can find the registration link on our website or in this YouTube video's description. All our webinar videos, including tonight's recording, can be found on our MS Fusion News YouTube Learning channel within the week that we record. So make sure that you subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications so that you can get alerts on our latest posts, including videos of our live events. You can also follow us through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you're enjoying these webinars so far, please make sure you visit our website and check out some of our free live educational events that we hold all over the United States. We're constantly adding new locations to this, so just keep an eye out in case you want to attend any of these. For more information of our events and for all that's new in the world of multiple sclerosis, please visit us at www.msfusionnews.org. And last but not least, we'd love to give a big thank you to Celgene and viewers like you for your ongoing support in making this program possible. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.